So I am super excited to introduce our second speaker of the night. So 3 fun facts about Nino. She once got stranded for 3 days in an airport on a tiny Caribbean island. She gives her close friends tarot readings for fun. And she learned how to speak Russian like a native while she was living in Colombia. Very cool. Nino, come on up and share your fuck up.
Well, I'm really excited to be here as a speaker for the first time. I'm a longtime fan of this event and attendee. Also, this story has a lot of moving pieces, so please bear with me as I try to explain them all. The story starts approximately 10 years ago when I moved to the US as an international student. And I don't know if many of you are familiar with this, but the US immigration system is not exactly straightforward. It's very difficult, and it doesn't matter if you studied there or if you had a well-paying job there or even if you have a STEM degree, you're not guaranteed a work visa. In fact, it's a lottery process. So approximately a year into me working, after I had already finished university, I realized that I'm not winning this lottery and I'm not getting a work visa. So what do I do next? Do I enroll in master's? Do I go back home? And I go to my employer, an Eastern European company, mind you, and I ask them, what do I do? And they offer to relocate me to another country until they figure out what to do with me. So I pack up 2 suitcases, and at the age of 22, I land alone in Bogota, Colombia. Let me put it this way. I know nobody there. I don't have a single friend. I only know a couple of coworkers, maybe. The main language of operation is Spanish. I mean, I was okay at Spanish. I could get by. I could talk at parties. I was not anywhere near fluent. And that's what you kind of have to be in order to build a life there, because most people don't speak English. And my only friends there were my Russian-speaking coworkers that were arriving for 1 or 2 month business trips. So although I look back at my time in Colombia very fondly, I also have to admit that it was a huge learning curve culturally and language-wise, and the whole time I also felt pretty lonely because I didn't have a friend group that I could rely on. And again, I'm 22, I want to do things. Which brought me to my big idea, which I thought was my golden ticket to success and fame and getting everything in my life figured out. I was going on a walk. This was me 6 months living in Colombia. All of my coworkers went back to their respective countries of origin, but I'm still stuck there because, I work there. And I had gone on dating apps. I've gone to a bunch of events. I had some acquaintances, but I still had no friends. And as I was going on this walk, I thought to myself, why is it so goddamn hard to meet like-minded people? And then, you know how in cartoons there's like a light bulb that shines over somebody's head when they get an idea? So that was me in the middle of this walk, because I kind of stopped and I was like, oh my God, I figured it out. What I should do is I should build an app that helps people make friends based on similar interests so nobody ever has to feel lonely again. Logical, right? And I got so excited about this idea. I ran straight home. I started Googling startups, how they work. I called one of my friends from university who's a software engineer. And I was like, yo, let's build this app together. We're going to make a lot of money. It's going to solve all of my visa problems. It's just going to do everything. And he's like, yeah, that sounds like it's going to do absolutely everything. And we were very, very excited to get started. But in the reality, the startup journey looks a little more like this. You're kind of you're wandering around aimlessly, and the way I like to describe it is that I made every single mistake in the book. Everything they tell you not to do when you start a startup, I did all of that. I made a bunch of people sign an NDA because I believed that my company was so valuable and important, nobody should know about it. I decided to build a coded MVP, funding it with my savings without even doing proper market or user research. Like my user research is as I DM'd people that I knew that moved. And I was like, hey, did you struggle to make friends when you move? And they're like, yeah, I did. I'm like, there we go. Perfect user validation. It's a problem. And then when my co-founder told me he was too busy to code the app, I flew to Georgia, where I'm from, and I hired 2 developers to build out this app that I drew the wireframes of on a piece of paper. And mind you, I had no consumer-facing product experience at that time. So you can kind of already tell what this app is going to turn out like. But again, keep in mind, for me, this is my golden ticket to solving a problem I care about, financial freedom, visa freedom, and everything. So right around the time when I was getting started here, my company offered to relocate me to Canada because I was a North America employee technically. So I first landed in Vancouver, and I have to preface this that Vancouver's a lovely city, beautiful nature, but I associate it with a very difficult time in my life because, just to paint the picture for you, I again packed up 2 suitcases and moved on my own. Again, I knew nobody there, and this was only a year after I moved to Colombia. I was working a very difficult and time-consuming full-time job that actually had me going on business trips to Calgary every week later on. And I was also doing this startup, which I believed was my, again, golden ticket to everything. And on top of it all, I was trying to build some sort of social life. So my mental health was a little bit down the drain for the entirety of the year while I was living there. But I was using my startup as a way to go out and network and meet people, which was good. And I finally identified the event where I was like, okay, this is it. This is where I launch my company. I'm going to get all of my users, and this is how it's going to help me grow afterwards. The event was called Tech Vancouver. And it's actually the same event that they have here in Tech Toronto. I managed to secure a 5-minute demo slot in December 2018. I remember I went up on stage and I presented this very buggy app that we had built. And unsurprisingly, the launch of the app, and the app was, by the way, called Delphi. It was an app for helping people make friends based on similar interests in their location. So you could like find people based on location or based on their interests. So I thought everybody would love it, but after a couple of dozen registrations from that huge event, the app flopped, which is, again, not surprising. Not a lot of messages were exchanged, the app wasn't functioning properly, but instead of using this as a wake-up call to myself and say, hey, you're clearly not doing the research properly, you're not understanding the problem, I said, no, the problem is me. I'm not spending enough time on this, I'm not figuring this out, so what I should do, amazing logic here, is that I should go in full time on this, and that's what's going to solve the problem. I'm going to have to launch this app in a bigger city, maybe go to Toronto and spend all of my time on it, and that's what's going to make it work. And mind you, while I was also in Vancouver, I was also doing my own immigration paperwork, which later on got me into the immigration space. So way too many things happening. So the moment I got my PR, which was a year after I had landed in Vancouver, I was done. I was done with everything. I was mad that the launch failed. I was really done with my job, which I didn't like. And for the first time, I had freedom. For the first time in years, I had freedom to make the decision that I wanted to make. So I quit. Literally everything I could quit. I quit my job. I packed up a few boxes. I shipped them over to Toronto to a friend of a friend's house. I got a one-way ticket and I flew to Toronto and landed in an Airbnb in Mississauga, all excited to build my app and launch it to the people of Toronto. And the first day of me landing here, I'm realizing, wait, Toronto's really expensive. How am I gonna afford rent? What am I doing about a lease? Because nobody's willing to sign me because I don't have a job. All of these questions that, and also, what am I doing with my startup? It's not generating revenue, so where am I getting money from? And my savings are already pretty depleted because remember, I've been paying for this app and company out of pocket. So I'm like already 5K down at this point. So I go on a university housing group realizing that having a roof over my head should be probably my #1 priority. And I find this girl who's looking for a sublet, and the girl turned out to be somewhat of a psychopath. She had a dog, and the dog was not potty trained. And she was at work all day and I was stuck with the dog. Which brings us to the final chapter of this story. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with that cartoon. It's a Soviet cartoon about a magical goldfish that grants wishes. But when the lady asked for too many things, the goldfish took everything away. And there's an expression that says that you end up by a broken wash tub, which means you end up with nothing. That was approximately my mood. I was stuck at home with this dog that I was cleaning after every single day. I was kind of scared of the girl, so I would lock myself in my room at night because I just wasn't sure she's going to try to kill me in my sleep. I still had no money. My lease was ending in approximately a month. I had no idea who I was going to live with, and I was scared, frankly, of living with anybody at that point. My startup was generating no money, and everybody that I spoke to about the startup told me that there's no way in hell that you're going to get a B2C consumer-facing app up and running with no money. And I felt like a complete and utter fucking failure. And I remember I went on a walk, actually to Riverdale East, which was one of my favorite places to go on a walk to. And I sat there and I thought to myself, do I go home and tell my parents, like get a one-way ticket with whatever remaining savings that I have, and tell my parents that thank you for investing all of this time and money in me and sending me abroad so that I failed at absolutely fucking everything. And yeah, you guys want to take me back in home? And the thought of that made me so angry, like so angry that I let them down, that I let myself down, that I had the freedom to do whatever the hell I wanted to, and what I did was fail, that I decided to somehow figure it out. I was like, no, there's no way that I finally got this piece of paper, this Canadian PR that I've been praying for years now, and that I'm gonna go away now that I have it. So I went on a bunch of freelancing websites, Fiverr, Upwork. I applied to a bunch of random gigs just to build up a portfolio. I asked everybody around me if somebody was looking for a roommate, and I actually still live with this person now, so thank you to her for being a good roommate. And in general, things started looking up. But how did I get to this point? Well, it all comes down to 3 very important lessons. The first one being, things take time, and everybody's on a different timeline. And I think what really got me and what made me so blindly believe in this startup is because I looked at examples of other people that were really successful, and they were my age. And I thought to myself, well, if they can do it and they made a thing like this work, why can't I? Am I stupider? Am I no better? Like, I can do things. But the truth of the matter is we're all on different timelines and we all have different circumstances. Some of us need to get a goddamn visa first in order to move forward, and that's the way things are. And the sooner you accept that this is the reality that you have, and you don't have to compare yourself to anyone, the easier it is to move on. So just accept that things take time and make the best of the time that you have. The second lesson is that yes, risk is good, but you don't have to take all of the risks at the same time. Who are you proving what to? When you set your life on fire, all you do is hurt yourself. And that's what I pretty much did. I managed to screw up every single aspect of my life for the sake of what? A company. And by the way, the moment I tried to pivot that company to be something more revenue generating, my co-founder abandoned me, and I owed him money on top of it while I was broke. So the whole combo of that, I'm just like, why did I need to do any of it? I didn't manage to prove anything. So take risks, but have the change be gradual so that you don't feel like the rug is being pulled from under your feet every single time. And the last but not least, and probably the most important one, especially for immigrants, especially for entrepreneurs, and especially for immigrant entrepreneurs, is self-reliance is key. Learn how to trust yourself and believe in yourself, and that you have to know that you are always there to come through for you, especially when you don't have anybody in the city or the country that you're living in. Know that whenever you need to do something, you have the confidence to say, yes, I can figure it out. But I believe in a room like this, every single one of you are capable of it. It's all just a matter of mindset. So I hope you enjoyed my story, and I look forward to your questions.
Such a great story. Thank you so much, Nino, for sharing. And I think it's so relatable. And, it kind of goes back to the point that I was saying before, on social media, everybody's sharing their highlight reel. And, it looks like, people our age or like maybe at the stage of life that you think you are, things are happening for them and everything is perfect. But in the background, it's just not true. And really, like, everybody is on their own journey. And comparison is, what's that saying? I think comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, great story. Thank you for sharing. And let's open it up for some Q&A.